Hi, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to send a video last week, but I want to talk about discussion board 3 as well as discussion board 4, and then give a bit of an update on where the grading of the exam, the midterm exam, currently stands. There's about 80 students in the class, and so unfortunately not all of the exams are going to be graded by this week. It'll probably extend into next week, but certainly before you take the final exam, you'll have the grades and the feedback for how you did on the midterm. So the final exam is going to be very similar. There'll be a business case where you'll be asked to read it and then answer the discussion questions. And from what I've read so far, I do appreciate the thought that's gone into the posts or the answers that you've given to the business case. So make sure that you read it in depth. You don't have to access resources outside of the case or the textbook and notes. So everything to answer the questions and get full credit for the exam, you should be able to do using the resources that are in the course and then on in the case itself. So the discussion board post 3, I know it's a couple weeks ago, but this was the one that asked you to talk about the pros and cons of salary bands and why salary bands exist in the first place. So if we think that a person's wage is determined by their marginal revenue product of labor, and recall that the marginal revenue product of labor is the market value of a person's output or contributions to a firm. So if a wage is a function of your productivity, your output, then the question is, why do salary bands exist? And I think there's several reasons, and quite a few of you had some pros and some reasons why you supported it. And that was that the market, in order to determine what someone's wage is under that theory, you have to know their productivity. And that can be a very difficult thing to do. If you've ever been on the interviewing side, where you've had to talk to candidates and maybe ask them to do a presentation or work through some problems, it's a bit of a challenge to determine how effective that person's going to be in your organization. And so because there's uncertainty around a person's productivity, salary bands can provide a range or a guidance, particularly for more inexperienced managers, on what a person's productivity should be. So that's one of the advantages of salary bands. It prevents the hiring manager from making mistakes, either paying too low or paying too high. Of course, the disadvantage is that the really top performers know what the market value of their services is worth. So if your firm says we're not going to pay more than $70,000, the market may say we're willing to pay $90,000 for this individual, and as a result the firm may lose out. And this is intuitive, and you can see this even in academia. In the College of Arts and Sciences, there are salary bands between what an assistant professor can make. So a person coming right out of their PhD program, let's say anthropology, is limited into the amount that you can pay them. So it used to be the case when economics was in arts and sciences, there was a maximum that the department could pay for a new macroeconomist professor. And the problem with that is that, let's say the limit was $85,000, $90,000, the market would be willing to pay $120,000, $130,000 maybe for a good macroeconomist who's willing to work at the IMF or the World Bank. And so as a result, it was very hard for the economics department to find good talent. So salary bands can be dangerous in that way, in that they could either prevent really good workers from applying, or they can certainly prohibit you from hiring somebody after you've interviewed them. So enjoyed the discussion about the pros and cons behind that. The discussion board 4 was really asking you to read the case of Rumpke, where they had negative externalities. And the question is, what would you do if you were the CEO of this firm? And there is a temptation to say, well, let's just fine the company. And it makes sense. So if they're guilty of some particular infraction, then the government might want to levy a fine. The danger there is that someone's got to pay that fine. And the fine can either be paid in terms of higher prices for the consumers. So that's not really helpful, because it's the consumers themselves that are paying for the cleanup. You could pay the fine in terms of lowering the wages for your workers, and so again, the workers themselves may be bearing the brunt of the fine, even though they may not have made the decision in the first place. Or the shareholders and the owners could pay the fine as a result of getting less profits. The extent to which of those three groups is bearing the burden of the fine, it's a difficult one to answer, but it's pretty clear cut that not all of the burden of the fine is going to be paid by the owners. So it's something to consider when you think about levying fines, and I know many of you suggested doing that the burden doesn't always fall on the person that you want it to. So there are a few other good discussion around the idea of negative externalities and what people should do. But Module 5 is asked. We're switching gears. We're talking about macroeconomic topics now. So if you're having difficulties, or I've already gotten some emails about people who had trouble thinking about a product over the last year, feel free to email me. I'm happy to help out. Give me a call, shoot me an email. But otherwise, things seem to be going fairly well. There's only a few weeks left, and if please keep up the good work, and I hope you all have a great weekend. Bye.